Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be working on the Traxxas TRX4 Defender again. So we're going to be adding some weight. Now as you can see, we've got a lot of accessories and stuff like that on this rig, which makes the body very top heavy. I love it being a trail truck and I don't want to change that, but I really want it to be able to climb. And one of the things it really struggles with that top heavy weight, and especially still having the spare wheel on the back and everything, you know, it really struggles when it's going up an incline. It just starts to lift. And then it tips over. So we have a whole load of brass. I'll show you all that in the packet in a minute. We bought two full kits basically. A kit for the front, which is your diff covers, you know, inner and outer portal covers, and the same for the rear. With all the stuff that we've got, we're basically adding, well, the front bumper is 97 grams. The front kit, I think, is 307 grams, and then the rear kit is going to be 229 grams. So, you know, we're adding a good 600 odd grams, almost half a kilogram, to the bottom of the TRX4. So I'm hoping that is going to help it climb a lot better. And I've also ordered some different tyres as well. Because one thing I did find with these bigger kind of extreme mud tyres from Injora, because they're so big, they pushed the height up of the car and actually made it less stable. Even though I fitted like steel wheels with wheel weights and stuff like that, it pushed the car up and it's, you know, raised that centre of gravity. So I've ordered some different tyres, so I'm going to get those fitted. That won't be in this video, that'll be in another video. But, you know, we can try those out and see if that makes a difference. Hopefully they'll be better quality tyres as well, so they might hopefully have some better grip. The front bumper mount is from Injora. All the other stuff we've got is from a company called RC Evolution. And I picked all these ones up off AliExpress. You know, nice and cheap. Hopefully they'll be decent. They do weigh a decent amount. You know, they look nice. So yeah, we'll see what they're like. But we'll get them all out of the packet. We'll have a look at them. We'll get them chucked on the rig. And then we'll take it out and we'll hit our usual trail spot where we've got some nice side hilling and a nice bank climb, and we'll see if it makes any difference. I'm hoping it does. So there's everything laid out. So we've got our, you know, front caster blocks, got a front diff cover, we've got our front inner port housings, and then front outer port housings, and then also some cool little brake discs and calipers, which I'm hoping they'll clear my wheels. And then for the rear, again, we've got a diff cover, we've got the portal uppers or whatever they're called, the inner housings, and then the outer housings, and then again some cool brakes and or discs and calipers. And the last thing we got then is the front bumper mount from Injora. Yeah, the machining looks good. I would have got them from Injora, but they only had them in the gold colour, and I wanted them to be black. Whereas this company had them in black. But yeah, they look decent, you know, they're labelled and everything as well. So, you know which one's left and right. You know, machining looks really nice. Obviously, once we get the stock stuff off and get these fitted, we'll be able to see, you know, what the fitment's like, or the tolerance of the bearings and everything. Hopefully it's really good. And hopefully all the screws and everything fit up nicely. They come with all the screws and everything you need as well. So you're mostly going to need a 1.5mm hex driver and a 2mm hex driver. So changing the diff covers is dead easy. You just basically got 4 screws holding the diff cover on. One just below there that you can't see. Basically just undo those 4 screws, and then once your screws are out, you should be able to just pull your diff cover off. There we go. Obviously if you haven't done it recently, it'd be a good opportunity to service your diffs. Now I've got the actual spool gears because I recently deleted the locking differentials front and rear, so I fitted all new bearings and lubed everything up with marine grease. So that's what all the white gunky stuff is in there. You just get your new port cover, just pop it on. Like so. And that's your port cover on. The seal's not bad. You know, once you tightened it up, it's not too bad, to be honest, compared to stock. You know, it's not quite perfect, but you know, it's alright. They're only cheap. But yeah, basically pop it on, put your 4 screws back in, job done. You just change your diff covers. Okay, so once you got your wheel off, you've got a grub screw holding in your hex, your wheel hex, so you can get that off. Then you've got a bolt holding in your steering linkage. Then you got a bolt at the top and the bottom of your caster block, so you can get the outer portal off. that whole piece just pulls out, and then basically you've got like 3 bolts, which I'll show you in a minute, behind here, which hold the actual the caster block or the C-cup, whatever you want to call it, in. So we should be able to get that whole assembly off, then we can swap it all over to the brass, change all our bearings and our gears over, and then we should be able to put it all back together again. So once you've got your wheel hex off and you've undone the bolts holding it into the caster block, you should be able to just pull it straight out, okay, like that. And then obviously you've got that assembly. One side is longer than the other, so if you take them off and do them all at the same time, just remember which way round they go. Obviously the new brass is labelled left to right, but depending on what way you're doing, it may not be. So generally I would suggest, just put them down. So you've got like left on one side, right on the other side. And there you can see those 3 bolts that are just holding in the caster block. So once you undo them, the caster block will just slip off. It's basically just like pushed in there. And then obviously we can swap over the caster block. Then we'll need to undo all these bolts that you can see to strip down the portals. So once you've undone your 3 bolts for your caster block, you should be able to just wiggle it off like so, and it just comes off and you're left with that. So then you've got your old caster block. There's the brass caster block against the old standard caster block. Looks like it should be a decent fitment, and it should basically just pop on here nice and snug. So our 3 bolts are back in for our caster block, and now we can get this pull housing stripped down. So once you've got it all stripped down, you've got your pull gear there with obviously your shaft that just pops out. That just comes out of the inner pull housing. Now on the inside, if you can see, you've got a bearing just sitting in there, which you'll obviously need to take out. And then on your outer portal housing, you've got your other portal gear. You've got a little bearing just in there, you can see, and then there should be another bearing just on that side as well. So just basically push that out, and then we'll swap it all over. So we go nice and simple. We've got our new bearing in there. Well, I say new, they're virtually new because I only did service this like a month or so ago, however long ago it was. So we got our new bearing, or we've got our bearing swapped over into there. We've got a bearing in there. Like I said, there's a bearing that sits behind that portal gear. That just pushes out like so. And then my bearing is, my bearing is sitting on the back of that. So just basically pop that back in there, and then we'll put the shaft in there, and then we can get it back on. That's all gone back together really nicely. All the bolts go in really nice. The bearings all fit really snug and everything as well. No issues. It all turns smoothly and everything. So a bit hard to do one-handed, but you can see it's rotating freely. Yeah, so happy with that. Everything seems to fit nice and snug. So we'll get that back on there, chucked on there, bolted all back together. There we go, that's one side all put back together. Don't forget to put your hex, wheel hex back on, and your grip screw. And don't forget to use your little bushings when you do the top, you do the bottom and the top bolt to hold the actual pull housing into the C-cup caster block thing. That's my technical term for the day. So yeah, so that's that side done. So we're going to get the other side done off camera, and then we'll crack on with the rear. Okay, so both sides are done, and we have our caliper and brake disc on there as well. Unfortunately, because of the fitment, you can only kind of get the calipers to sit in one kind of place, so they're a little bit low possibly, but either way, still a nice little bit of detail. So we'll get the wheels back on the front, and then we'll get cracking with the rear. Okay, so for the rear it's a little bit different. Again, you need to get your little grub screw out for your wheel hex, but then you've basically got these 2 bolts here and here, which you just undo those to be able to then remove the actual portal housing, and then once the portal housing's off, you can pull it apart. So you can see on both sides you've just got those 2 bolts basically holding the portal housing in, and then once we take that piece off, again there'll be 3 bolts holding that on, so then we can replace it with the brass piece as well. So I'm going to get both sides off. Well, I'll do one side at a time. I'm going to get this side off, I'll show you it all apart again, and then we'll get it all fitted together, and then get the other side back together as well. Okay, so once you've got those 2 bolts out, you can just basically pull the outer portal off like that. So your outer portal's off, and then you might just need to pull your shaft out as well that goes into your diff. And it's a bit hard to see, but basically in there is 3 bolts that we can then undo to get that inner portal housing cover piece, whatever it is, off. So there we go. You can see the 3 holes there. So we've popped that piece off, got our portals here, and then we've just slipped the shaft out as well. So yeah, we can get the new brass piece on, which is this piece here. So we can get that on. Okay, and then yeah, we can strip the portals down, do what we did, similar to what we did with the front, just swap everything over to the new rear portals, and then get it all back together. So again, you've got your 8 bolts holding the portals together. Pop that gear out, and there'll be a bearing behind it. You can see there's also a bearing in there. And then with this one, again, this gear just pops out, and there'll be a little bearing in there as well, and there'll be a bearing in there. So just pop all those out. So there we go, we've got a bearing swapped over, and the gear, portal gear, in that side of the brass. On this one, again, we've got our portal gear, swapped all our bearings over, and it's good to go. So now we can stick those 2 pieces together, bolt them back together, and we can pop it back on there with our 2 screws to hold it back together. There we go, there's our rear portal all back together. Put those 2 bolts back in, just need to put the hex on, and then just fit our brake disc, which is just these little 3 holes here. Just line it up, attach your little caliper first to the little brake disc, use the little grub screws, and then bolt the disc onto there. So let's get that done really quickly, and then we can get the other side done, and then we just need to do the front bumper. So for the brake disc, you get your little screws and your grub screws, and you get your caliper and your disc. Now, the 3 holes here line up with the 3 holes on the portal cover. So it goes like that on the portal cover. And then obviously what you want to do is just work out which side you want your caliper. Then slide your disc into your caliper, just like the real thing. And then on the back, you can see you've got all these little holes. Now you'd think you'd line up with the big holes, but you don't. You actually need to line up with the smaller holes. And basically what you just need to be aware of is making sure it's not going to foul the portal housing. So you basically just got to play around with it, see what you're happy with the fitment, see which holes you then want to line it up with. Use the little grub screws to go in the back here to then just basically screw it in. And then it's these little silver screws which are used to actually screw it to the portal housing. So let's get that all done. So there's our little grub screws, which you can see if it focuses. There's our little grub screws screwed in the back there. And if we turn the disc over, you can see that's the front of the disc. It goes on like that. And you probably can't see the holes because of the light in here, but basically it sits on there like that. You put your 3 screws in, job done. So let's get it on, get the other side done, sorted. There we go, that's both sides finished. So we've got our brake disc and our brass portals and everything on that side. We've got our diff housing cover, and we got our brass portals and brake disc and caliper on that side. So there we go, all done. We got brass on the front, we got brass on the rear. So now let's just get that front bumper on, and then we'll be sorted. Okay, so for your front bumper mount, you've basically just got 2 grub screws at the top here, one over there, one over here. Just basically undo those, that's what holds your front bumper on. And then on the side here, you'll have 2 screws, and that's what actually holds your front bumper mount in. So you've got 2 on each side. So yeah, 4 screws, 2 grub screws. Take your front bumper off. Just be careful if you've got any cables or anything like that, if you're running a winch or anything like I am. But yeah, should be really simple. So let's get those grub screws out, get these screws undone, and then we'll get the brass front bumper mount fitted. 4 crusty screws out, and then you got your 2 kind of like grub screw pin things. Front bumper, just tuck it out of the way, and then basically this bumper mount should just come straight off like that. If my phone would actually focus, there you go. So there you go, nice and easy. Okay. So there's the brass front bumper mount. So pretty much the same as the stock one, but this one does have, I think it's meant to be for servo mount at the front, whereas your stock one, it's obviously just plastic, and it just literally looks like that. So for the brass one, you're basically just gonna slide it in like so. Just pop it in there, and then again you're just going to do your 4 screws up, and then you can put your bumper back in and mount that. Job done. And there we go. New brass bumper mount on there. Front bumper's back on. Job done. The only thing with the brass one, it doesn't quite fit up as snug as the stock one, so it pushes it just slightly forward, you know, only like a millimetre, 2 millimeters maybe. But yeah, that's the only thing I noticed. It doesn't quite sit as snugly in there as the stock front bumper. But yeah, there we go, all done. But yes, we are all brassed up, so let's get out on the trail and see what difference this brass has made. Hopefully a lot. So we're going to try and climb up this bank here, which last time we did it with these bigger extreme mud terrain tyres, it tipped over, I think, because it had raised the centre of gravity, because I had to raise the suspension up slightly. You can see it's quite a bit of arch gap there. So last time we tried it on that bank, it tipped over, it couldn't make it up there. So it'd be a good test now to see, with all that extra weight on there, so you know we've added like what, 600 grams roughly, so you know over half a kilogram. Interesting to see if it can make it up there now. Let's see if we can pull it out to the... Nice, that was definitely way easier than last time. You know, last time we were lifting wheels, we were tipping. I mean, to be fair, out of the box, it did this bank much easier than it did with the upgraded wheels and tyres on. So I'm not a massive fan of those wheels and tyres. Well, love the wheels, not a massive fan of the tyres and the extra lift it gives the body. But there we go, that was really cool. Let's try a bit faster with second gear getting up there, just to try and throw it off its balance a bit and just see if it can do it in second gear as well. Easy peasy, lovely. Well, there you go, that's good. Right, let's try a bit of side hilling. You see, that's quite an angle. It is lifting the wheel a bit, but it's still holding on. Slipping down the bank. If that right wheel falls off, I think we're going to go. Yeah, you can see that's a decent angle. I think it's definitely more stable than it was before. I mean, it should be with all the weight we've added onto it, but you know, I think, like I said, I'm planning on changing those tyres, dropping them down to a slightly smaller radius tyre, so then hopefully that should make a difference as well, because it was definitely more stable when it was a bit more, you know, lower like stock. Nice bit of tyre squish there. Nice. So yeah, it's definitely more stable than it was before. I think changing those tyres will hopefully make a difference. I can lower the suspension down a little bit, so you know it's not such a higher centre of gravity, and then yeah, hopefully just better grip tyres as well would be nice. So I've ordered some, I think they're RC 4-wheel drive 1.9 Swamper tyres. Picked them up on eBay used, so it'd be interesting to see if they're any good. We'll keep the wheels, so we'll still have the wheel weights and those lovely deep dish wheels on there, but we'll just have the nice RC 4-wheel drive tyres we will give a try, instead of these extreme mud terrain, not very extreme tyres. Oh, one thing I do need to do, you can probably hear it in the video, is a horrible noise. I think I need to rebuild my gearbox again and figure out what's going on with the gearbox, because it's so whiny, and it's not the diffs, it's not the motor, because it's a Fusion Pro. And I was at the East RC event on the weekend, and there was a Traxxas TRX4 Bronco from one of the guys from Hearts Crawlers on Instagram. I was just so quiet, and I was just like, oh, that's what I want mine to be like. But mine's just so whiny, you know. It's just like, it's like a TRX4 with a cold. As we're here, just for a bit of fun, let's just see if we can crawl across this log crossing, which goes over the stream. It's not very deep at the moment, so if we fall in, we're just going to smash something probably, but let's just give it a little try, because it looks like a fun obstacle. I don't think these tyres are the best suited to it, to be honest. They'll probably just roll off.
doing well so far. Can't actually see what angle I am from here, to be honest, so I could be driving off in a second. You can see that tyre kind of rolling over on the front there. I don't know if you could see it, but it was kind of peeling over a bit. I think that's where those dual stage foams I got for the tyres aren't actually quite big enough, quite wide enough. That was easy, wasn't it? There's that whiny gearbox. Horrible noise. That's an interesting bit. Let's see if we can get down without falling over, shall we? You know, a bit of test the weight. I think it's probably just going to tip straight away, but I thought I might have been able to hold it then, but no, unfortunately not. Let's see what we can do on this log before we fall off. I think we'll just start losing grip. I was going to hold then. That looks like the limit. Yeah, it's quite on the edge. It just looks so good. Nice slow speed control with that Hobbywing Fusion Pro as well. Looks like we're going to lift a wheel here, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely made a difference, you know, having that brass low down. Obviously, you know, my rig is really top heavy. You know, if you didn't have all the crap on top that I've got on there, and sorry, accessories on there that I've got on there, and you know, lifted up slightly with those bigger tyres, then it'd probably be even better. I definitely say it still needs some more weight. You know, I want it to be able to like climb quite extreme hills with all the accessories on, you know, even if it weighs a ton. So, you know, that's kind of what I'm aiming for, but obviously, you know, we've got a lot of work to do with the looks of it. But yeah, we'll drop those tyres down to a smaller size and then we'll try again and see if it's made a better difference. We'll try and find some of the few more obstacles we can get over climbing. And, but yeah, let's have a little crawl through the water, I think, and then we'll call it a day. But yeah, I hope you found that useful. Drop me a comment if you've got any questions. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Just turn on that notification bell as well so you don't miss upcoming videos. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.